Timing. Do not be alarmed. All right. I needed some instruments. Because I remember when I did this last time, I struggled with hammering the plates in. But yeah. Okay, so for today's experiment, we have a couple of things I've prepared. Actually, there's a way. I might. I might pull out my cupboard from underneath here and have like a mini table where I do the experiment. That you guys can see all the stuff. Yeah. Sack of patatas. Ah! There will be bonking, yes. So, disclaimer. Do I need to put in a disclaimer here? Safety issue. Something. Yes. For health and safety, do not repeat this at home, but also this is not dangerous. Nobody panic. So, I love how I have potatoes and olive oil in the background and people are going to come in and it's like, oh, this is a cooking stream. No, I'm doing physics, but I'll explain it in just a moment. Oh yes, and a hammer. As we know, that's a normal cooking tool in the kitchen. Depends what you're cooking. So, what do we need for this experiment? Number one, we need potatoes. The bigger the potato, the better. And the reason why we need big potatoes is we need big surface area. Very interesting thing Tofu just said there. Keep those things in your brain, right? She said surface area is important. Another thing we're going to need is crocodile clips. Voila. Have a little tray of crocodile or alligator clips. It depends which ones you usually have. Let me put on some background music, by the way. Have a little bit of Witcher 3 aroma. We are not using the potato for food. No, we are not. And I can't actually reuse them, fortunately. But we are using them for science, and science is very important. Another thing we're going to use is a bunch of wires. We're going to need some wires. And ultimately, to demonstrate that this is a proper working battery or that it's working, we are going to use an LED. So here I have an ta-da! Almost done. But there's just one more thing I'm going to need. Well, two more things. A multimeter. A multimeter is something that can measure current and measure voltage and resistance and all these other things. But the reason we refer to it as multimeter is we're going to use it for current and voltage. We just need to switch between knobs when we are going to be measuring contrasting ones. And finally, the last thing, an important part, is voila. So this is the experiment that we're doing today. So hopefully I can multitask. I'm going to bend the camera a little bit so you guys can see better. But anyways, I'm hoping I can multitask this because there's two things I want to do. I want to talk a little bit about the history of Volta, Alessandro Volta, and I want to obviously teach a little bit of physics. So hopefully it works out. Let me know if it's not too great. I'm going to make sure that the mic is not in the way of the setup. All right, I think you can see quite well, right? Move my phone away in case anyone sends me dodgy photos. Not looking at you, chat. Will this experiment work with vodka as it is? Let me think about the consistency of vodka. I'm not actually sure. No, I'm not aware of that. Okay. Let's turn this up. Okay. Are we working on mics? No. We are building basically a potato battery. Now, before I get started and kick off, I wanted to mention a little bit of history. So, imagine that this is just before the 18th century. And static electricity has been around for quite a while. People were using static electricity to basically do a whole bunch of demos. They were telling stories and shocking people, and it was kind of like a magician's trick at the time. That's really only what it was used for. They also showed that you could build static electricity and in your human body, and then like have gold foils on the ground, and you could move the gold foils. It was like a really, really good party trick. A little thing to impress the ladies. So if in case anyone is thinking of ideas of how to, winky face with someone, I'm giving you dating advice. Do a bit of static charge magic tricks. Now, around that time, there was a person called, what was his name again? Alessandro Volta and Luigi Galvani? I believe it was Luigi. Now, I know that's a very, very typical Italian name, but if anyone can confirm that it was Luigi, I'd be happy about that. And Luigi Galvani was, zooming in on the potatoes, was a gentleman who was studying electricity, right? Was studying electricity in animals, and he did a lot of demonstrations with dried animals, one of them being frogs. He would cut off dried frog legs and different parts and components, and he tried to demonstrate in different ways how electricity could float through them. In fact, this story goes that it wasn't even Galvani who kind of saw this originally. He brought his laboratory home, kind of like what I have done, as you can see in the background. I bring my work home, and because his wife was very, very sick, and so he wanted to take care of her where he could. And so he set up his laboratory in the kitchen. And so when she came down from a cup of tea or a cup of coffee in her morning, she put her copper cup down on the ground, on the table, where there was a frog leg. And because there was another metal connected to the other end of the frog, it twitched. The frog leg twitched. And everyone's like, Galvani was very, very fascinated by this and did so many demonstrations and experiments to show that inside all living creatures is this electric fluid, this God-given fluid that allowed electricity to conduct and was the essence of life. It was very, very religiously associated with this. Now, when he published his papers and things like that, there was a young gentleman not too far. I was trying to remember where they were. One was in Bologna, and the other one was somewhere else. I forget where it was. It was all Italy anyway. And it was Alessandro Volta. He was offended by the idea that we were explaining science using God. It wasn't exactly something that many scientists were actually on the bandwagon yet. Nowadays it is more common, but back in the day, even physicists and scientists and all sorts of ists were still very much religious. Alessandro Volta wasn't, and he didn't like any scientific explanation associated with God. And so he did do his best to tear down the scientific premise of anything Galvani worked on. Now, the problem was Alessandro Volta needed proof. Where did he get his proof? Well, he got his proof by studying work by Cavendish, I believe, on something called the torpedo fish. Torpedo fish. You can have a wee Google yourselves, but I'll show you really quickly what it looks like. Do a quick display capture just so you see what the fishy looks like. So this is what the fishy looks like. Diagram. So if you look at the diagram or schematic of it, if you zoom in the dissection of it, do you guys see that? I think you do. Yeah, you do. If you zoom in on the dissection of it, maybe this is a better image, you'll see that there's little circles. What are those circles about? Well, this was the premise and the inspiration behind the Voltaic pile. Those were discs stacked on top of each other, flesh membrane discs, and flesh discs, chains of them, right beside each other. So they were going upwards, but also beside each other and connected. This was how the torpedo fish was able to sting its human victims. But really what it was doing was shocking them. It was an electric shock. And originally they thought it was a sting, not realizing that it was electric. And so Volta took inspiration from this. And if you want, I can even show you a quick little diagram. A quick little representation in the corner of my whiteboard. Sorry, I know I was going to say I was going to talk and build. Turns out I'm not very good at multitasking. You'd think I would be. You would think I would be. Let me swing around this way instead. Now, if we put the discs here, it's not dry enough. Disaster. Disaster. You guys see that? You do. So we have one disc, two disc. Ow. Another disc, another disc. So what he did when he dissected and looked at the piles of flesh was that there was alternating flesh or texture or difference. Sorry, not a biology person here, but you know, something, there was definitely something consistently different. And Volta took inspiration with that by using Galvani's metal. It was the difference of the metal, right? Remember his wife put the copper cup down and there was a different metal connecting on the end of the toe of the frog leg. It was alternating different materials in between these layers. And so what Volta did was he put a plate of copper, zinc, copper, zinc, copper, zinc, one on top of the other. Now, I'm missing something in my recipe. There's something in between those plates. What is it, chat? What is really, really important between those plates? Magic. Oh, yes, magic. Magic juice. What's the magic juice? Love. Oh, Jesus Christ. I realize what the stream is becoming now. Not wire, no, fluid. What kind of fluid? What was so important about the fluid? Conductive fluid. What is a conductive fluid? Electrolyte, yes. So conductive fluid is anything that's salty, acidic, anything that has ions in it, right? If it's a charged particle of sorts, it can conduct, right? So salt is perfect. He used salty cardboard in between those plates so that electricity could transfer. Really, really important step. Actually, can anyone correct me? Torpedo fish, is that a salty water fish? Because that would be really cool because it'll inherently have the conduction. I'm guessing it's fluid inside is probably conductive anyway, but a little stray thought there, if anyone knows that if a torpedo fish is salty water fish, or is it freshwater fish? Bringing back to the potatoes now. This allows freshwater rays to transmit discharges at higher voltages as freshwater cannot conduct electricity as well as salt water. Ooh, so there's an argument there, right? Do you want higher voltages or do you want it to flow faster or easier? But I guess you can have a build up there. It's always like a little bit of a, what's the word? It's the chicken or the egg, right? A lot of people will say it's not the voltage that kills you, it's the current. But ultimately, my point kind of about it is that it's kind of like the chicken or the egg because the current wouldn't be as big as it is if it wasn't the voltage. So, you know. So let's try and build this replicate Voltaic's pile. We can get plates of zinc and copper and stack them on top of each other if we want. That is doable with sheets of cardboard, but I'd need a lot of them. I don't have that many. It is a plan that I plan to do, but I need funding. So if anyone wants to fund the tofu, let me know. Now, what we're going to use instead is we're going to use a budget cardboard salty plate. Potato. A potato or orange or anything else like that is a fruit, a veg, a flesh thing with juices inside. So we're going to utilize the juices to allow current to flow. So that's exactly the premise of today's experiment, and I will try and demonstrate it. Now, while this might take a little while, you guys are more than welcome to chat or ask questions or participate in any lore finding. There's three things that are involved in circuits when we talk about these things. Three important things. Well, number one is usually voltage, right? We mentioned voltage. Voltage is what we tend to refer to as potential difference or the potential voltage or voltage, usually a symbol V for it. Now, this is the thing. It's the steepness of the slope is what I like to refer to it in terms of classical mechanics. It depends. Nobody be alarmed. There is a hammer here. It is the amount of, not energy, but it's the potential that your setup can achieve. It's kind of like in mechanics, the hill, the ball at the top of the hill. How much potential does it have? The other thing that when we talk about electricity and things like that is current. Current is very important as well. Current is the flow of charge, the flow of the electrons. Make sure we don't cut through. The flow of the electrons happens because as we increase the voltage, current will increase. This is classical Ohm's law. But another thing, it's very juicy. It's bleeding out, a lot of juices out now. But another thing that can happen, and very important parameter of the resistance, is poor innocent potatoes, is resistance, right? When current flows, there can be inherent resistance in any material that it has. If you can see my little box of tricks up there, we've loads of things like 330, 220, 10K. Those numbers represent resistor values. And so they resist the flow of current. When we talk about it in terms of mechanics or fluids or pipes, consider it basically how thick or thin your tube is. If your tube is super, super thin, there's a lot of resistance in your system. If your tube is really, really thick, there's less resistance in your system. Now, can anyone notice something interesting happening with the copper plate that I've put in and the zinc plate? Any commentary on the difference of the two plates right now? Should have put the zinc in first. I don't want to short it, so I want to make sure that it comes in, goes in straight. One is silver. Yeah, there's definitely a very distinct color difference between these two. Very obvious which one is zinc and which one is copper. They are apart. That's true. We don't want them touching, otherwise I'm shorting the circuit. Why copper and why zinc? Great question. So this has got to do with the electric potential difference between materials. Every material, when you compare it to hydrogen, which is like the neutral point in them, has a either positive potential or a negative potential. And the idea behind it is that some materials really want to get rid of their electrons. Other materials really want an electron. And so when you put a plate that really wants electrons and a plate that really wants to get rid of them, you build a potential difference between them. The bigger the potential difference, the better. Remember V, your voltage in your Ohm's law equation? You build that bad boy up. Zinc and copper are beautifully cheap materials to do this experiment because, first of all, they're easy enough to grasp. If you guys want to build this experiment at home, you can. You don't need plates like I do. You can use a copper coin and you can get a zinc-coated nail. The premise will stay the same. Now, personally, it hasn't worked for me because you need a whole lot of potatoes. But in theory and in practice, I have seen it. It does work. Exactly. The size is different. That's right, Young and Marius. Welcome in. Welcome in. Their sizes are different. And this is what I talked about when I talked about the worst dupe in oxygen not included. A mine. Fisa Tofu, thank you so much for the resub. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hope you're keeping well. This is what I meant, that your colony is defined by your worst dupe. The same thing happens here. Am I even getting it in anymore? Let me try and get it in. Should have planned ahead and gotten some napkins as well. Wait, another tofu? It is a tofu imposter. Don't listen to Frita Tofu. I just zinc nickel. I think copper is copper. I think copper nails are copper. I could be wrong though. Can anyone correct me on the rumors I'm spreading? Now, the sizes are different. And I mentioned again, like, your colony is defined by your worst dupe. And the reason I mentioned that is because, remember I said that current is the flow of electrons. If I have a very small plate and a very big plate, and electrons are coming from the surface of one plate to the other, how many electrons are absorbed or how many electrons are emitted by the plate is limited, right? This copper plate is massive. It could emit, let's say, 200 electrons. But because this zinc plate is so much smaller, actually, I don't remember in which way it goes, but bear with me here for a second. It can only maybe absorb 50, right? So your current isn't going to be an average between the two. It's going to be limited by your worst plate. So if this is how much it is limited by, this is the surface area, that is your whole circuit, your whole current in your circuit. Hi Nerdvino, welcome in, welcome in. How are you today? You came in perfect time as we're talking about potato batteries. Hi, Grego Waffles. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. So yes, people are coming in and realizing that we are on the front page. You guys are more than welcome here. I do science technology education. I am a physicist from Ireland, as you can tell by the theme of, the potatoes. And I teach physics to general audience. So if you guys are not physicists, that's completely okay. There's nothing wrong with that. In my mind, you all are physicists. And so just so you're aware that we do a little bit of science and physics and technology and God knows what else in between. And play games. So today, a lot of the lessons are inspired by the game we're playing, which is called Oxygen Not Included. And in it, they have a voltaic pile for the battery. And I was very much inspired to demonstrate how the voltaic pile works. All right, we have murdered sufficient enough potatoes here. Well, no, we need to murder one more potato, I think. I should have probably polished these guys with some sandpaper. I pre-sliced the potatoes so it's easier to hammer these guys in. There's a lot of juice flowing out of the potatoes. I thought this was going to be a breakfast cook. I know, there's olive oil in the background. There's potatoes. I think a lot of people came in thinking, oh, this is a cooking stream. Does it matter if it's sweet potato or not? It can, absolutely, Pierre. It matters if it's orange juice or if it's there's different types of potatoes as well. And you can even do an experiment like this to test what fruit is the best. Oh, loads of juice bleeding out. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Really need to grab a napkin. Does it look like a heat lamp? Can I power my house for 15 years of 2 potatoes? No. We could measure the voltage and the current. We will do that. But it's going to be very little. I'm going to disappoint you, lads. So there's a bit, so I've used these, Jesuit, I've used these potatoes before, and so a lot of it has oxidized and it's dirty as well. So you do want like pure zinc on the outside and you want pure copper on the outside. So you do need to do a bit of polishing every now and then. Hi, Science, welcome in. Hope you're keeping well. We have 2 other science communicators in the chat right now, guys. We are honored by the presence of Science and Nerdvino. So if you guys are interested in NASA related stuff, we have Nerdvino. If you're interested in microbiology and creatures, no, it's not microbiology, that was bad, Tofu. Just because it's small doesn't mean it's micro. The biology of insects and all things in between, I highly recommend you check out Science. Yeah, if you have enough potatoes and enough metal plates, you absolutely can you can charge your phone. You absolutely can. There is a possibility of doing it. But I'd just like to highlight that again, the battery is not the potato, right? Remember I said that when Volta created this, he needed the salty juice. Remember? He needed the salty cardboard to be able to transfer the electric current. Now, wait 2 seconds. This plate is too thin. I have another plate just here in the background. I can still see you, chat. Don't misbehave. I still see you. I'm right here. Don't you worry. My label said iron on this, and honestly, I have suspicions that it wasn't iron at all. I don't know about you, chat, but I don't think this is iron. Hi, Silver. Welcome in. Welcome in. So I'm going to prepare 3 potatoes. This will be my worst potato, I think. But again, whatever one is our worst is going to be our limiter. Okay, so we have 3 potatoes. Excellent, 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 excellent. Now, we have loads of juices as well. I should probably get some napkins. Just let me use this, actually. I'll clean it up afterwards. Now, next step is we need to connect the wires across. Well, one thing that we could do is before we even start is we can boot up our multimeter, set it up to measure voltage, like this. Let's measure voltage here. It's going to be in the millivolts, I know, so I'm going to decrease it down. And we're going to probe the right-hand side and left-hand side and measure exactly what the voltage is across the potatoes, because we need some. I roughly know what the number should be from my experience. Oops, sorry, I overdid it. It should be just under 1 volt. So it's 0.948 volts. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. This is a good way to test it if my potato is shorted. Now, what does short mean in science or electronics? It means that there's a shortcut for the electron to flow. And so what I could have done was I could have, inside the potato, accidentally connected the zinc and the copper. But everything's good so far. Let's measure the voltage across here. Oh, you guys need to see it, sorry. Let me put the... has a little stand here so you guys can see this. Oh, do I not have a stand? Ow! Yes, Nas, tie light. I am allergic to zinc and I should definitely wash my hands after this. Okay, we put the 2 plates here. It is 9.5 or 0.95 volts. Okay, that's good. Now, why was there a minus sign? Does anyone know why there was a minus sign? Is tofu like creating negative energy? What is going on here, lab rats? 9.5. So all the potatoes are about 0.95 volts. Exactly. The polarities were just switch the black and red wires. Exactly. So it was just a directionality thing. I was measuring potential in the opposite direction. All good. So if you ever see that in your experiment, it just means it's going the other direction. Does potato size matter? It does, in the sense that if you have a very small potato, a lot of the plate might not be immersed. So then you won't have enough current. So current density is really, really important. Now that, unfortunately, I can't demonstrate that easily. I need to close the circuit. But we can measure the current that 1 potato gives. Let's measure 1 potato. So I have a simple wire, and I'm just adding crocodile clips to it. So I'm attaching to the copper plate here. And I'm going to get another wire here. Are we having fish and chips for dinner? I do not recommend eating these potatoes after you've experimented with them. As standard health and safety goes, do not eat the food. Do not eat the food that you experiment with. That's really important in biology. Oh, Jesus. Yes, absolutely. Very important in biology. Don't do that in biology. If you experiment with food, put it in the experimental hazardous waste. Very, very important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this guy up for current. We're going to close the circuit through the multimeter. So COM and milliamp. All right, let's see what we have. We have 2.2 milliamps. That is what our current is at the moment. If I put it across here, we have 2.5 milliamps. The minus sign is just a directionality thing. And the current going through This other potato is 4.5 milliamps. Oh, so this is the worst potato. Remember, your worst potato is going to be your limiter. So these two potatoes are the best. This one is the worst. So we're going to put it aside for now. Now, here's something for the electronics fans in the chats. That was very good grammar, Tofu. Good job. Of all the LEDs to use, which one should I use to ensure that this experiment works? Green, yellow, blue, or red? Baked potatoes? Sure. Red, exactly. Red has the lowest voltage drop across all the different diodes that exist, because a LED is a light emitting diode. It's just a diode, and it needs the minimum amount of voltage to activate. This would be a really, really great way to activate it. Now, all we have to do is connect all these bad boys up together. That's our next step. Yeah. Yeah. Blue would be the worst. It is. Blue requires the highest amount of voltage. So what we're going to do is, if I'm connecting the zinc from, or the copper from here, we need to connect it to zinc here. You can't connect copper to copper, zinc to zinc. It has to be the opposite. From copper to zinc, and this guy. Now, I am hoping that 2 potatoes is enough. Remember, each one was 0.9 volts. Do some mental maths, add them up together. It should be sufficient enough to power the LED, but it might not be. It might not be. We'll see. What is the correlation between amps and voltage? Well, voltage is the potential in our system. It's what you push to drive electrons in. Current is the flow of electrons. So again, kind of put it in your head. If you increase the voltage, more current is going to want to flow. So they're directly correlated with each other using Ohm's law, which is V is equal to IR, or voltage is equal to currents times resistance. I'll do a little bit of that stuff at the end on the board, if that's all right with you guys, because it is very important and very educational, I think. A red wire here, blue wire here, 2 crocodile clips at the end. Now, I know there's light on already, so you might not see this very well, but crossing our fingers and our toes, let's hope it lights up. Are we ready, team? Are we ready to light this up? 3, 2, 1. Hey! Da na 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 na. It took us 2 batteries to light up this LED. So this is it off, if it doesn't seem too obvious. On, off, on. I think it's very obvious that now. It works. It only took 2 potatoes to power this LED. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about here. We have a lot to talk about now. Let's do a small cleanup. I know that we're live on stream. We don't have too much time to do too many major cleanups, but ever so small cleanup. Very good question, Uber. I'm going to throw a question back at you. I'm going to be one of those teachers. Let me ask you, chat, what is going to stop the LED from lighting after a certain time? What's going to be the problem? Not until the potato runs out. No, not the potato, because it's not the potato battery. When we eat okay, well, that would be a huge problem if you eat the potato. How do you run out of the electrons? When it dries out? So, what actually happens on the metal plates, on the surface of these metal plates, is that there's oxidation and What's the other one? There's oxidation and reduction occurring, right? And so there is a reaction happening at the surface of the plate, at the surface of the zinc plate and at the surface of the copper plate. And it won't be the copper and the zinc that we know or that we tend to know in these chemical reactions. And so it won't be the chemical reaction that they need to be able to allow current to flow. So over time, one plate will oxidize while the other one reduces. I think copper is the one that oxidizes, by the way, and the other one reduces. You'll also see a proper discoloration of it as well. So it'll be visually represented too. In fact, you shouldn't be keeping the plates in because they will naturally devolve as well or get damaged. So that's why I'm pulling them out of the potatoes now so that we don't damage these plates and we can reuse them for more and more demonstrations. This is how electroplating works. Exactly. This is how electrodeposition, electroplating, which was a big part of my research during my master's, and I'm hopefully going back to it a little bit now these days. Oh, I got juice all over me. And studying how metal deposits on different surfaces. So it's not sustainable. No, so we can't recharge the potato battery. So what is limiting us, or what's going to stop powering the potato battery, is the reaction on that plate. Once that's done, it's over. It's game over, man. Game over. It is damaged. The plate cannot go back to its original form. And we've run out of the battery. That is why there's a misnomer or a misrepresentation when we call this a potato battery, because the potato is just the electrolyte. It is not the actual battery. As opposed to what my research in was, which was vanadium flow battery, we actually store the energy in the vanadium oxidation states. So the vanadium is the battery. We do have the carbon plates and everything like that, but the electrolyte does store the energy. So it's still correct to say that a vanadium flow battery is a battery, or the vanadium is the battery, but it's not correct to say that the potato is the battery in the potato battery. It's the zinc and the copper, the relationship between them. Oh no, it's still a battery. The potatoes are just, it's the part of the battery. They're not the battery of the potato battery. They're the potato is the electrolyte. Does that make sense? We can sand the plates. Yeah, I didn't do it today, but luckily this experiment worked.
Back on the menu, boys.
Thank you, Go, for the 100 bits. Hi, Chubsy. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. We've loads of follows, loads of new people coming in. You guys are more than welcome here. I'm using a game called Oxygen Not Included to teach some physics concepts. Today, I just covered water tensions, adhesion and cohesion forces because of the meniscus kind of diagrams drawn in the game. And we also talked about Volta and the Voltaic pile. And we basically replicated it using a potato battery and powered an LED. So if you guys want to watch back 10 minutes ago, there was a cool moment where we powered an LED. Ugh. Almost done. There we go. So we've salvaged the plates. We should wipe them down so that there is no reactions occurring. And there we go. So one potato survived. And we didn't need to damage the other potato. So unfortunately, the potatoes will not be reused for cooking. That is a health and safety issue. Do not eat the food that you experiment with. Wait, okay, experiment is a loose term. What should I say about that? Let me push this plate to the side. Here. There's a little bit more to teach about potatoes. I really love potatoes. I mean, I love potatoes generally speaking in life, but another important thing about potatoes batteries is that it's such an amazing educational tool. If you force your students to do it and measure the current and the voltage, you can get a lot of information out of it, instinctual information out of it. With batteries. Don't be alarmed. I do have a hammer. It was just to hammer things. It was okay. Everything's okay. Nobody panic. Fellow potato lover, yes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. What is your favorite potato? We should make a poll. What are our favorite potatoes? Chips, crisps, mash, vodka. Yeah, it would be better to do that, Jordan. I unfortunately did buy potatoes specifically for the front page for the education. I hope it was worth it. There was a lot of people who viewed it, and maybe not everyone got to see it. Roasted potatoes is so good. Oh, with a little bit of chicken stock or juice. Yes. Oh. Include gnocchi. Oh, yes. I don't eat enough gnocchi at all. Don't tend to eat them much. Yeah. Let's slide this under the table and we're going to do a bit of maths. Who's good at maths? Who likes maths? Oh, that's right. You don't pronounce the G. It's gnocchi. You're right. You're right. Boiled potatoes rolled in honey and mustard also slaps. I don't know what that is. That's interesting. Okay, I don't want that hammer anywhere near my 3D printer. I'm scared for my 3D printer. Okay, I'm just going to clean the whiteboard and we're going to do a little bit of maths about this. I really do think potato batters are... I got the maths once. Now, oh Jesus. Welcome in, Smash. Let's clean up the whiteboard a bit. Maybe I will just switch the whiteboard. Go. Save myself some cleaning. Hashtag efficient tofu. Alrighty then. Also as a topping in shepherd's cottage pie. Now, where's my markers? I 3D printed a new thing for my markers. Look! Isn't that cool? It's a bit rough around the edges some places. But other than that, I think it's pretty cool. Now, I talked about voltage. And I talked about current, right? And I talked a little bit about resistance. So, when we have a potato, we have two plates sticking out of it, right? We have zinc, we have copper. Thought I could get a nice color code going here, but I don't have the right colors for this. One is one color, and another is another color. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Chubsy. It's a bamboo A1. So, we have current flowing in one direction. I don't remember which way it goes. But we do have current flowing in one direction. Current is noted by the letter I. Sorry, I'll try not to talk away. I'll try to speak when I'm facing the mic. Current is flowing in one direction, and we have a potential difference. So if I took a probe and measured the potential difference between one and the other side, that would be V, the voltage. Same word, by the way. Voltage and potential difference mean the same thing, in case you're wondering. I just use them interchangeably. Personally, I'm a big fan of using the term voltage difference, so you understand it's a measurement between 2 points. The voltage is the driving force, right? It's the thing that you crank up to tell the electrons, let's go! Time to move! It's this encouraging thing. So the more you crank up the voltage, the more electrons will want to flow. Current is the thing, it's the water, it's the fluid, it's the thing that's flowing in the case if you kind of have this pipe, what's the word? If you have this water pipe analogy in your head. Current flows from positive to negative. Current flow, yes it does. But do you know which one is for zinc and copper? There's one more thing. There's another thing that can happen. We also have something called resistance. Now, in the copper and the zinc, there's a lot of resistance going on. And what's really, really cool about this is that even within a battery, we have something called internal resistance. And I'm not even talking about the potato battery. I'm just talking about any battery that ever existed ever. Actually, any material that ever existed. There's always some sort of resistance. Unless it's a superconductor, unless it's something that has absolutely no resistance, everything in this universe has, okay, that's a bit of a stretch, but everything has a resistance to flow of current. As long as it's super, super small, that's great. We can have lots and lots of current, or that's bad. It depends. We do want resistance in our circuit. It's not like resistance is bad. Resistance is a good thing. We purposely put resistors in our circuit to control current and voltage. And all of these three things, current, voltage, and resistance, which is by the way symbol R, are related with each other using something called Ohm's law. V is equal to I. Ohm's law is an equation developed by the gentleman Ohm. And it's a really, really cool law because every single thing comes back to it. Whatever you study in electronics, will be Kirchhoff's laws, or you study potential dividers, current dividers, anything down the line in circuit analysis. It all comes back down to Ohm's law. Ohm's law is the daddy of electricity, and you just cannot work without it. It is the concept and the idea that you just kind of either need to accept, but there's also, like, I believe, quite an instinctual feel. Voltage is a thing you pump. You drive the flow of current. Current is the thing that flows, and the resistance is the opposition. Sometimes your tubes are super, super skinny. There is going to be a lot of resistance for the flow of water, let's say, in this analogy. Or their tubes are going to be very, very wide, and there's not going to be that much opposition for the flow of current. Now, just to show you symbols, if I were to represent this in a circuit again, it would be like this. This is a symbol for a battery or a power source. So remember, I measured it. It was something like 0.95 volts. And I didn't measure what the resistance is, but I didn't measure the resistance. But what did we measure? I measured the current, didn't I, lab rats? I measured the current, and it was 4.5 milliamps in one of the better potatoes. 4.4 milliamps. 4.4 milliamps. We can calculate what the resistance, the internal resistance of our potato is. Let's calculate exactly right now what it is. V is equal to IR. Rearrange the equation to find R on its own. Our voltage is 0.95 volts. Our current is 4.4 by 10 to the minus 3. Grab your calculators, she says, with no calculator in her hand. I'm just going to use my shit calculator, unfortunately. Don't have my good one on me. (4.4 by 10 to the minus 3). There we go. 215. If anyone can check your maths in your calculators or in your heads or approximates. Got 215 as well. Thank you, Zir. The resistance is 215 ohms. That is the internal resistance of the potato. Now, is it? Is that a statement? Is that a bold statement that I can make, that this potato in our experiment has a resistance of 215? Logically, let's think about what resistance is. What is the thing that's resisting flow in this juicy potato? I'm hinting towards something else. That's right, Sleepy. Hi, Max. Welcome in. The zinc and the copper has something to do with it. Something about the potato, though. Did you notice how close I put the plates? The zinc and the copper plates into the potato? See the lines here? Why didn't I put the plate here and here? So it happened to be that the resistance of the potato was 215 only because I put them where I did. The closer they are, the less juice that the electrons have to flow through, and so there is less resistance, there's less path for it to take. So it absolutely is distance dependent for sure. Now, ultimately, there's all these other resistances lost. It could be the plate interaction, could be the juices with the plate. There's all these different things. But in total, after measuring it, after calculating it, we know that whatever shenanigans are going on in the potato, in our little system, it was 215 ohms. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. We're just talking a little bit about potato batteries and how it works. Now that I've taught you that, I did something funky. I couldn't use one potato because we only have 0.9 volts. I put in another potato. We almost had 2 volts, and I think it requires about 1.8 volts to power a red LED, and it turned on. It was like, yay, it worked. What happens to the current now that I added a new potato battery in there? You can get a lot more voltage out of it, Slappy. It depends what you do with the potatoes. I'm going to cover that now. Yeah, the current is not going to increase, Waka. You're absolutely right. If we put in another potato battery like this, it doesn't change. The current doesn't change. The voltage does. Voltage is going to change. The resistance is going to change, but it'll only just match the current. So the voltage will change. It's doubled. But what actually happened is the resistance also changed, but our current will not. Did you put them? They're in series, one after the other. One after the other here. So the current did not change. So remember when I said that our current is defined by our worst plate. Whatever plate was the smallest area immersed inside the potato was the maximum amount of current it could go through. It doesn't matter if I made even bigger plates and I got a bigger potato. Like, if I put 2 potatoes in series, one here and one here, but I said, feck it, let's grab even a bigger potato, like this big, and like a massive plate, like 0.5 meter in length, and another plate for the zinc and the copper, put them in, and I put them in series, one after the other. Pretend this is the big potato and this is the small potato. It would still be the same current. No matter how big we make this potato, it's limited by our worst potato. Now, something else that we can do, an interesting thing that we can do, is we can rearrange the circuit a little bit. We can do something else. We can add, where's my... We can go ahead and add another potato like this. Dun, 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 dun. There's probably going to be a resistor there, so I should do that. Now, I added 2 more potatoes, but I put them weirdly. So what happens? Suddenly, when we have a driving voltage, let's say it's about 2 volts here, it's going to be the same, okay? This is one of Kirchhoff's laws, which is kind of like a duplication of Ohm's law and all of that good stuff, is that the voltage in parallel is going to be the same, okay? So the potential difference across here is going to be the same across here. But current has 2 paths to take now. Current can go this way, or it can go this way. So current can now double. The current can increase in our system because we've put a new path for current to take. So basically, if our current was limited earlier by the tiny, tiny part that was immersed in the potato, we've now put another plate. We've doubled the current. that we can have in our system. Now, a little bit of a question because of the experiment that we did. We did have an LED here. Wrong way. My question is, how come even though we only had tiny bit of current, like 2 milliamps, how come our diode still lit up, chat? How is that possible? How did the diode light up even though it had a tiny bit of current? It's a very kind of simple answer. Voltage is what is needed, not current. One of the cool things about diodes, and I did do a little bit about this actually a month ago when I was last on the front page, I taught about semiconductors and I taught about holes and electrons. So if you are interested, there is a VOD archive on Twitch. I think, even better, there's a highlight video. I highlighted that whole 8-hour crash course into electricity from the front page last time. If you're interested, I go through all of the theory behind how diodes work. And basically all you need is voltage. You really don't need much, if any, current at all. 0.7 is for a diode. An LED, a red LED, is a bit higher. It's about 1.8, I think. And then it goes up and up and up in all the different colors. Doom, doom. Okay, lab rats. Do we feel like we learned something today? Did we learn anything? It's okay if we didn't. I'm curious to know if we did learn anything from the history of Volta and Galvani, from the building of the potato battery, from doing a little bit of mathematical problem solving. Highlighting an electricity lecture, exactly. And this is really important because if you're a person like me who gets really into building stuff and is really interested in learning about these things and building a few gizmos and gadgets at home, this is the foundations, this is the bread and butter. And you might say, oh, we're learning very, very basic things and I'll never use it again. Sometimes it feels like way. I honestly do feel like that sometimes with a lot of physics topics, that you learn so many basic things that by the time you get to the advanced stuff, the basic stuff never comes back up again. I cannot imagine a scenario in this universe where you're doing anything about electronics, building circuits, building anything, and you're not using Ohm's law. I genuinely, I cannot express enough how you get away from this. It's one of the basic things you learn first, and you will use it all the time. It doesn't matter if you didn't learn anything. Alba, I don't want to encourage it, but yes. Look, ultimately, as long as you learned something today, even if it's not from me Twitch streaming, of someone else out there, or some video or something like that. That's why I'm a big fan of things like Twitch, where you could find someone like me streaming science and education. Or if you guys are League of Legends obsessed gamers, no judge. If that's the case, that you're studying and learning different combinations of items, or how to farm better, or game ideas, or maybe it's a game like Oxygen Not Included, where you really have to think and make sure your dupes survive. Whatever it is, I hope you are learning a little bit every single day. I think it's a really good thing to practice with your brain. Hi, Snoods! Have you covered thermodynamics in another video already? Depends what you mean thermodynamics. I haven't covered the whole thing, no. I don't teach it this year, so I'm not focused on it. A lot of the stuff that I do is usually inspired by my own real lectures. So when I say I experiment on my lab rats are my community. It's you guys in the chat. It's you guys subscribers. I'm not joking. So a lot of the stuff I do on Twitch is I'm practicing, or I'm trying out something new that I think my lecturing students would enjoy. Or maybe it's an interesting thing. So for example, on Wednesday, that'll be my next stream. If you guys want to hang out, I'll be designing an Arduino project and a 3D printing project for an experiment to measure the speed of sound in the lab. So if you're interested, that'll be something that I'll be doing on Wednesday. And I'll be doing it from scratch, building the electronics, writing the programming, extracting the information on an LCD screen, designing a plate and casing for the Arduino and everything else, using the 3D printer. So if you're interested in those kind of things, that's just some of the stuff that I do. And again, I'm not an expert in it. I've never done that before, and that's the whole idea, that we do it live on stream, we learn, we see what happens, we see what works or what doesn't work more than anything. More than likely, most of the time what we do doesn't work. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm a lab rat, you are a lab rat, Waka. Maybe against your will, but you are one. Hi, Franca. Hope you're keeping well. Welcome in. No, I teach solid state physics. So that's why I teach semiconductors. Ah, thank you, Nitzva. That's so kind of you. You're very, very kind. I bet none of the lab rats are volunteers. Well, yeah, we do joke that if anyone gets a gift sub, you guys became a lab rat against your will. That's for sure. We are volunteers. Oh, it's so hot in here today, though. Jesus, Mary and Joseph, lads. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. So that is 2 out of 3 lessons done. I taught you about batteries, the history of the Voltaic pile, and all the good stuff in between. I taught you about the meniscus, which is the discussion about the adhesive and cohesive forces of water. And the 3rd lesson, after we play a little bit more of Oxygen Not Included, is going to be an interesting one. Interesting being the imperative word there. I say interesting because this is the most stressful part that's approaching in the game, where we're going to be talking about gas pressure issues. Gases are annoying. Sleepy, thank you so much for the 2 month. Really appreciate your Prime. Thank you so much for the support. As long as we learn something today, anything and everything is all right. So we did a very, very talky stream. The second part was very experimental stream. And the 3rd one is going to be a mix. So like I said, we're going to be talking about gases, and maybe you see a little gadget right there. I'm going to use a gadget to talk a little bit about some gases. There's some gases to talk about. And when we get to that, I'll show a demo and a bit of education about it and lots. Oh yeah, so the next part that I'm going to talk about is I'm going to do derivations. I hope you're looking forward to that. So it's not just maths. We're going to do derivations. Do you teach RL? I'm a lecturer full-time and a researcher in a university. And I just happen to have 2 months off during the summers. Off is a light statement. I have a lot of work to get done and prepare for the next semester. But I'm able to teach a little bit on Twitch during the semester and during the summers.